Event Cinemas George Street, sponsors of 2SER 107.3.
Now, if you're a fan of dancing, whether it's seeing big conceptual performances, learning choreography, or just getting down for a good old boogie with your mates, this event is for you. PACT Salon in Erskineville is presenting the Big Bounce for an evening of live music, live performances, art installations, as well as dance workshops to get your bodies moving and inhibit the joy of dancing. Joining you in the studio now is curator Matt Cornell, Cezzo Snot, and dancers Angela Go and Adam Warburton. Good morning.
G'day.
Hi.
Hello.
Good morning.
Oh,
Morning.
So many of you. All right, big event tonight, but for you guys, what is it about dancing that just makes you go, whoo?
Maybe I can start because I probably have a more layman's approach. But yeah, so I'm a DJ Cezzo's not, yeah, I also have a background in philosophy, so I like to think about this stuff, and yeah, I think like a role as a DJ is you're kind of like a socialist entertainer. You're thinking about what's good for the group, and you have, you know, kind of a responsibility as like a musical propagandist.
Wow.
Well, I don't think it's any coincidence that like a lot of dance culture has come out of, you know, actually like oppressive situations. So, you know, queer culture is very embedded in club culture. You know, there's been a lot of things like, you know, the concept of a block party comes from black culture. In Berlin, you know, they basically built clubs out of rubble after the war, and then raves came out of Thatcher England.
Yeah.
I think like it's a way for people to come together and see what's possible for individuals to be themselves in a celebratory kind of way. So it's asking how can we live together and creating new values, because like dancing is something that's more of like a direct, intuitive kind of relation to the world. So you aren't getting values from an external authority either. So there's that impetus, even unconsciously, to do that.
So this PACT Salon seems a bit like a bit of a dance festival. So how did it all come about? And, you know, you've got 3 more events, so what can people expect?
It's true. I have no idea about the future salons, I'm afraid. I was lucky enough to be invited on board to curate this one, and I wanted to open as many doorways and windows and pet doors and cracks in the wall as possible for dancing. Not dance as an institution or as a form or as a construct or a product, but a way of being in the world, which sounds non-practical, but it's actually super practical, because the way that you dance informs how you feel about your body and tells everybody else how they are allowed to feel about their bodies. And it's a way to practice hunting or sexual activities.
It is really practical. That's kind of Heideggerian.
Yeah.
Well, he had the idea against like Descartes, like where you are practically engaged with the world, and he actually called it being in the world, or design was his term. Yeah.
And I also remember my mum, she's getting to an age now where she can't dance the way that her soul wants to, I guess.
Yeah.
But she still gets the pleasure from watching people dance, and so I didn't want it to be only one avenue to engage.
Yeah.
And that's why I invited these artists on board. Maybe Adam can talk about, like, he's really keen on people having access to dance and dancing, and his experience is more in house and the club culture that surrounds house dancing. You want to talk about how that's become a piece? Or
Yeah, sure. So I'm really excited, I guess, to be a part of the night, and I think Matt's put on like a really great event. You know, like I'm also really excited to hear Cezzo's DJ set as well for the night.
Yeah.
I guess I come more from a street dance background, and I also, I guess, create performative works as well. You know, in I guess contemporary dance works as well as performance art pieces as well. And so, I think the night's really great. Like how it starts off is there's going to be a dance workshop at the beginning, and I think that's just a really like nice way for people to kind of get inside and being able to dance without having to be inebriated, basically, or drunk. and it's really refreshing, because I feel that everyone always usually goes out, and there's this real stigma, especially around men, around dancing. And so I think that's just a really nice entry point for the night. And
do you think it's changing with how people perceive men dancing?
I'd say yes and no. Like in the media, I guess, if you're looking at those, a lot of the shows that are out now, and I think, I guess the younger generation perhaps are having a different view, but it's amazing still how many times me and my friends or other dancer friends will go out, and then sometimes you'll get guys, drunk and trying to come in and do their thing and just like make a fool of themselves or to try and put one up on someone else. So there's still, I feel that, that culture that's still there.
I think it's about where it comes from and how much you feel like you need to defend your social power position. And dancing's this really weird thing where in all of Western culture, in our films and our books and our movies, films and movies, the person in power remains seated. The king or the godfather, whoever it is, they don't get up. They don't get physical because they're in power and they don't have to get physical. And my experience is the opposite. My experience is that when you are dancing, that's when you are in power. That's when your body is given back to you.
Wow.
But then maybe Angela has another take on it again with her piece.
Yeah, you're performing tonight as well.
So tonight I'm performing the next iteration of a project that's been going since about 2014. And it's happened in lots of different places, in Sydney a couple of times, and then lots of places elsewhere. And it's the premise of the piece is that for each performance I hire the services of a professional psychic, and she predicts what will happen during the work, and then during the performance I make that come true. So this project is kind of looking at dance as kind of its own entity in the world, with it's not a thing that caters to the desires of a dancer or a choreographer or just how it can arise, and how then as a performer or as an audience how we can be with a dance that doesn't necessarily cater to anything else except fulfilling its own destiny, and in that moment how can then we experience dance as a thing of itself, without having to justify it in any way, or without having to ask of it kind of like, what does it mean, what is it doing here, what's its purpose? And it's because the answer to all those questions is like, it just because it is here, and to give kind of a power back to dance as a thing, and also to kind of circumvent any kind of critique, because whether you believe in psychics or not, it's kind of a closed loop because I make it come true, so it does come true. So there isn't, it can't be critiqued. So in that way, like, how else can we interact with it, or how else can we be with it without, not in the mode of critique, but in the mode of kind of more like feeling what it's like to be next to it or something.
Yeah. Do you feel like particular audience members, they're still a bit inhibited by like, oh, that's a bit too much, I can't do that, and that kind of vibe when it comes to dance?
Maybe I'm going to ask Adam to talk about, because you're doing house dance, mate, which seems like it's not easy to do well, but it's not, it doesn't have the same physical barriers that, say, breakdancing might have. So do you want to talk about if there's stigma about, like, maybe the way that you've constructed your piece so that it feels like something that people might see themselves doing?
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, I guess just taking like maybe a wider view of the question versus, I don't know, I feel that like with audience participation with dance, I feel that it comes a lot down to the people who are in that space and how open they are with their dancing, and just energetically. I know that sounds maybe a bit heebie-jeebie, but yeah, so I guess when I go out a lot with other dancers as well, you can feel it immediately. I feel when you walk into a space, whether or not it's an inviting place and you feel safe. And I feel that's really important for dance, because dance is such a personal thing. And so I feel if you feel safe, then you're more willing to express yourself and through your body. And so I guess the piece that I've worked on with the two other dancers, Sean Cheng and Paulina Boccian, yeah, I feel that I chose these dances as well because I feel that they have that same energy, that they're quite open as dancers. So I'm hoping that through this work that, yeah, perhaps in the end the audience might feel open enough to join in.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think what I hope for the evening is that it's not about us and them. It's not about the people that have legitimacy to move their bodies and the people who still do not have it. It's not about dance as an object outside of yourself or your culture or your body or your perception. Actually, it's about dancing, and that exists, and how can you let it exist in your body for the amount of time that it's going to make you feel awesome.
And sometimes I feel like as a DJ, I try to make that like impossible not to dance.
Yes. Yeah.